Hey, football fans, this one's going to be for you. I say that because we are talking to Shawn and Sonny Hennessy. Shawn has been the chaplain for the Green Bay Packers over the last 6 years, but way beyond that, Shawn and Sonny have an incredible story, a story of being in ministry, rising up to the top, and then crashing and coming back down. And we learned some things in this conversation, didn't we, that really not only surprised us, but thought like, wow, this is not how it should be.
Yeah, there were a lot of gems in this conversation. But one of the things that was so surprising was that the church that they were a part of actually wanted him to stay on staff after it was really clear that he probably needed to step down. And so his step away from vocational ministry came because of a prompting within his own heart and spirit that was actually the right course, and not from the church doing the right thing and asking him to take a leave.
So what does it profit a man that he gains the whole world but forfeits his soul was one of those phrases and verses that was running through my mind as we went through this whole episode. And what we're going to hear is not just Shawn but Sonny. They work together as a team, but we're going to learn about what happened in their marriage and how that fell apart and how that came back together, how they're back in ministry, but it looks so different than anything it was like before, and why you might want to listen to Shawn and his secret desire that what he really loves doing is washing dishes. And he feels more fulfillment than that in doing that than almost anything else. So this is a phenomenal episode. We love them, and we know you will too. Shawn and Sonny Hennessy, the Life After Ministry podcast. Welcome to the Life After Ministry podcast. My name is Matt Davis, and I'm here with Mary Lee Davis, my wife. Say
hello.
And together we are here with Shawn and Sonny Hennessy. Hello to you guys.
Hello.
Good to have you here, or at least online. Tell us, where are you from? Tell us a little bit about your family, and we'll jump into your story right after that.
So we have pastored in Green Bay, Wisconsin for 11 years. And Shawn is the chaplain of the Green Bay Packers. He's going into his 6th season. And Shawn is the senior pastor. I'm the lead pastor. We have 2 kids that are both now doing their theology degrees at 2 different Bible colleges. So we are proud parents of that. The goal is that we all get to do ministry at one place. And luckily, that's their decision and their words, not ours.
That's awesome.
Of course, we're happy about that. And then we also own we created a separate nonprofit where we started our podcast, The Rise After the Fall. And we have a 20-acre property in North Carolina where we go through spiritual and emotional healing with leaders, pastors, and just anyone in need of healing. And we have had that open for about a year now. And then lastly, we own a coffee house and eatery and a couple more locations in the works, including one in the Seattle area where we get to be in people's lives 6 days a week. And on the 7th day, we're open at the church, and we tend to see people really check out our church because they like what we do in the community and our businesses.
And I thought I was busy. You guys just made my head spin, but that's good. And really, it feels like everything that you guys are doing is ministry. And so let's jump back a little bit and tell us what was the call into ministry, where you moved from whatever you were doing into something that you might call full-time vocational ministry. How did that start?
Yeah, I think it happened individually. I mean, my call to ministry, I was in college. I had a rough background. I had been incarcerated the year before, which is a story for another podcast where you have more time. But I had a guy from Salem, Oregon, who had been sharing Jesus with me for 6 weeks. And in a locker room before a football game, a football coach came in and simply read John 3:16. And my heart broke. I started to weep in the locker room. And immediately, I think within a matter of about a week, I was saved, baptized, and called to ministry.
Wow.
And it started a beautiful journey of joy and pain.
And he was drafted into the CFL and turned it down in order to go into ministry because there was just this desire. We had gotten married in Bible college. We met there. And I was called into ministry by doing human videos in a little tiny church, in a country church. Human videos, people would have to Google that. It's acting and dancing to songs like from Carmen. Yeah. And DC Talk back in the day, Jars of Clay. So anyway, I was called to ministry and I'm like, I need to go do drama dance on stage for Jesus. Well, that actually is something you can do, but we ended up being youth pastors right out of Bible college. And that was 28 years ago. We were married and then been in ministry for 24 full time.
Wow. I didn't know that you could do the drama dance for Jesus. I missed my calling. That would have been fun.
Yeah, wow.
So there came a point for you guys where ministry was no longer working, and an exit door was shown to you. Did you open that yourself? What was that process like, and what were the struggles leading up to that?
Yeah, I think we were always on the fast track. The hand of God was so prevalent on our life from such a early age that opportunities just continue to open themselves up. And I think, to summarize it, looking back, I think I just became so full of me and so void of Jesus that I was operating on talent, I was operating on charisma, and I really think I believed my own press long enough that I didn't feel like I needed God or anyone else. It was just a performance, really. For me, I was really good on stage, really good in front of people, and I just wasn't good at the Jesus thing, really. And it reached a point where we were pastoring a church outside Detroit, and through a series of events, Sonny just had enough, and packed my kids up, put them in the back of her parents' truck, and drove off to Florida. And her dad stayed with me and said, listen, I'm mad at you. I don't like you right now, but I love you enough that I want to make sure you don't do anything to yourself. So I'm going to be here until I feel like you're safe. Mm-hmm. And so Sonny went to Florida and was going to file for a divorce. And it was an interesting journey to navigate through that, because the board of the church that I was pastoring at the time actually requested that I not resign, even in the midst of my life literally falling apart around me. And so we weren't shown the door. We actually had to choose the door so that we could fix what was broken, because after about 4 months, Sonny decided that she absolutely could not live without me. After about 4 months, we did submit ourselves to counseling. We submitted ourselves to our spiritual authority and began the process of restoration, thinking that we may never be in ministry again, which was painful, because when you're in ministry, you feel like you're not really marketable outside of ministry. I thought, what is my skill set? What am I going to put on my resume that I can stand in front of a crowd of people and move their emotions? But you don't have to do that at the grocery store or selling shoes. So I didn't really feel like there was anything that I could do outside of that. So I went into some pretty deep waters as a result of that.
It seems like that's a common theme that happens, especially with men coming out of ministry, is sort of this like identity crisis of like, who am I? What do I do? And especially if you're coming into ministry at a young age where maybe you've been to seminary, like all of your education is based around the Bible. So I remember for Matt, it was even like, I don't even know how to put a resume together because I've been in the same church for so long. There was such a learning curve. So you're trying to figure out these like very practical things of like, what do we do? Like, how do we make ends meet? But also, for a lot of people, I think you're going through something very difficult personally. You're wrestling with your demons. You're in counseling. You're trying to learn and grow and unpack all of this stuff all at the same time. It's a lot.
And I appreciated about Shawn. He did apply at TSA. He applied at McDonald's. They said he was overqualified. He applied at Lowe's. They didn't call him back. And so he didn't get any of those jobs, which was God directing him to not do that. But what I appreciated from my vantage point was that and my vantage point now currently as we work with couples who are coming out of this, I appreciated he didn't try to go on the consulting circuit and go try to tell churches what they should do. Because that's a trend, especially if you're at a certain level of a church, that if you were really great and now your character didn't keep you, your integrity, was bad. Now you just have the freedom to fly around and tell other churches what to do with no shepherding required. And I appreciated that Shawn, his spirit was, I need help. Like, I'm not qualified to work with people. When going out of Bible college, what we both did is we didn't address our past. We just went into Bible college. I mean, we just went on the road from Bible college. We just went into youth ministry and didn't address our childhood issues. So we were very spiritual, but we were emotionally stunted and emotionally arrested in development. And that only works for so long in the ministry.
I read a quote recently that said, like, I'm going to butcher it a little bit, something along the lines of the degree to which you can develop spiritually is directly connected to how you can connect emotionally, like to yourself, but also to God. Like, people hit, if they don't do the work to connect emotionally and do some of that stuff, it actually impedes how deep a connection you can have with the Lord. And I thought, gosh, I think that's really true.
So it's interesting because a lot of the stories that we hear of pastors making their exodus out of ministry, a lot of times it's because there's leadership that's above them that hasn't cared for them well or set up systems in place. We've allowed pastors essentially to run themselves ragged, to focus on some of the wrong things to the point where there's a destruction internally that's going on. And so we've seen as a result, we had an episode recently with Dr. Dee Dee Meyer at the Boone Center for Family at Pepperdine. And she has this she did her dissertation on 9 essential conversations that you need to have with your board. And it's interesting because what we've seen, and we don't want to villainize, the board is not the villain, but oftentimes because the board has not had adequate training and investment even in them, that they don't know what they're supposed to do other than they're a wealthy business owner and they've been successful in one category of their life, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you are in another. But your story is an interesting story in that, like, most pastors, if the wife has packed up the kids and moved all the way across the country, that's when the elder board says, well, I guess it's time for you to go also. Do you wish, was that extreme grace from your elder board, or was that extreme foolishness? Like, I'm trying to figure out on the spectrum, like, what did you need at that time?
No, I don't think it was grace. I feel like up until that point, I felt like a commodity. I mean, I had played football at a high level, got into trouble multiple times with no ramifications whatsoever until I did something that made the school look bad. And once I made the school look bad, then they cut ties with me. And so then I went to another school, which was a Christian school the second time, and I received the same treatment from the football standpoint. As long as you can perform and you don't make the school look bad, then we overlook your lack of character or integrity. But then it transferred in that Christian school beyond the football side of things. I got kicked out of school. I'll make this short. I got kicked out of my Christian college for smoking weed in the dorm rooms. I didn't know you couldn't be saved and smoke weed. I had always smoked weed and nobody told me that when I got saved. And so the dean of students walks into my room. I'm in basketball shorts, no shirt, a huge purple foam cowboy hat, and the room is filled with smoke. And he walked in, and I literally went to hand him the joint, and I got kicked out of school. Well, fast forward a week later, I sang at a friend's wedding in town, and the president of the school at the time was at the wedding. came up to me and asked me if I would go travel with him and sing while he preached. I said, I can't do that. I'm not a student at the school anymore. He said, let me take care of that. So I was always a commodity. I was always someone, as long as I could perform, as long as I could build whatever it was they were trying to build, then all of my negative attributes had been overlooked. It made me, when they asked me to stay, Matt, it honestly, beyond being disappointed by that, it made me feel used. And the church was growing, the money was growing, people were excited, and it almost felt like, I guess it doesn't matter what I do with my life, it matters what I do with my talent. And when I left ministry, part of the reason that I left is because I felt like a commodity. And so to come back in, and to Sonny's point where, yeah, I did apply for a lot of jobs. I couldn't get jobs. But what I realized when I left ministry is the voids that were in my life spiritually. I had been in ministry for years and had gotten a Bible degree and had been in seminary and hadn't read the whole Bible.
Because nobody was checking in on that.
Yeah.
The commodity, I think, like, we reject the celebrity pastor title. I just think, gosh, what does that mean? And it's so overused. But really, we don't care what our celebrities are doing. We want them to produce and give us great product and entertain us. And whatever they do with their life, in fact, there is no moral compass. And so that's the life that we lived. Had he not been at the level of talent that he was at, I think the other thing is we were in an organization that was awesome, a fellowship that was awesome. But if you don't check with your pastors about their personal life and their marriage and their character along the way, I think the DMV checks on us more often than a pastoral fellowship does. Like, for us to graduate from Bible college, we didn't have to prove our integrity as much as our biblical knowledge. And that wasn't even great. And so, to point fingers, we point fingers at ourselves, and we're actually grateful to have accountability, and that we eventually had someone say, you're going to get out. Because that board, allowing Shawn to stay in, allowed for pride to actually grow. And we weren't getting closer to getting back together because he was still pastoring the church he had been pastoring. And I was looking at our marriage thinking, why would he need to change? And he for sure needs to stay in that church, because what are we going to do financially if he were to just resign? So we have a lot of pastors who stay in places that they should resign or be removed from.
Why is it like this? Is there any other career, profession, like spot that we're technically supposed to be the most healthy of people, the most, if Jesus came that we might have life and life abundant, then we are the life givers. And we do that, but we forfeit our own soul in the process. Is this systemic? Is this like this institutional, like, church that is creating this? Is this the chasing after the celebrity and have this picture in our mind that is not correct about being a pastor? Because it feels like there's a lot of pastors that are in it, but there's also almost half of them want to get out of it. How do we fix this? I mean, you guys, and we'll get to you're coming back into ministry, but you are in ministry again. Like, how does it look different now for you?
Well, we definitely have a layer of accountability. And so our board we have an overseer board, and those overseers are all pastors who I have submitted myself to them. So one of them is the one guy who told me that I really needed to leave ministry and go pursue my wife. He had been a mentor of mine for years. I really had 4 people who stuck with me, and they were all pastors. One of them was my senior pastor when I was a youth pastor years before, and he was the first one to call me. And I had never heard him speak sideways about someone. He was the most positive person I had ever met in my life. And I remember he called me and he cussed at me. And he said, "Are you still an a-hole?"
Hmm.
I was like, Pastor, I didn't know that I was. He said, "Well, are you and Sonny back together?" I said, "No, sir." He said, "Then you still are. Don't ever call me again until you fix your marriage." Ooh. And it was, his relationship with me was so important that was like the jolt that I needed to really start to take that seriously. But then he stuck with me. He walked with me through it, if that makes sense. And so I had a handful of guys that stuck with me. I had a lot of people who did walk away from me. But I had a group of guys, a small group, that really stuck with me. And those people are still with me today. And so I've given them the permission and the freedom to call me on things. And they have the authority constitutionally within our church to remove me. And so, but I also know that they love me. So I think that there's in some regard, there is a lack of accountability, and we need to layer ourselves with that and submit ourselves to, like Marilee talked about, if you can't control yourself emotionally, so there's got to be some sort of a process where we can open ourselves up to some sort of therapy or some sort of counseling process, which is kind of how our program in North Carolina was birthed.
Yeah, I would say we probably, like you guys, are in the Reformation business and in the awareness and prevention business. Because once someone has fallen, it's a wreck. It's a mess. You go from helping people in 1 week where everything is emergency driven, everything is tragic, and then they ghost you for a month. And you were like going to get them free therapy and fly them in and and they're just chaotic. And so there's enough people that are on the verge of a moral or ethical failure, because it usually, like our situation, it took years before our marriage, before I left Shawn. It wasn't like 1 month after things went crazy, I left him. It was years of silent struggle where there wasn't physical abuse, but there was for sure just chaotic. Being married to someone who was arrested in development from his childhood trauma. So anytime we would get under stress, he would react like a first grader. I would react like a 12-year-old girl. And then we wondered why we fought in an ineffective way. It wasn't constructive. So it just pushed us further backward. And so we believe that that's why we started our podcast, was to say, don't throw away the church. This is a people problem. And we're in the Reformation business of saying, as you guys are, how does the board handle it? What should be preset, almost like a prenup, for lack of a better words, in your church and with your board? What is the plan for the husband and the wife and the children afterwards? What are you doing and what are you setting up in your denomination or fellowship, or even in your church, to have your pastors, not just your senior pastor, but your pastors, be growing emotionally and healing spiritually and emotionally, so that we don't run into this over and over again. It is a systemic root problem because Satan has a bigger target on pastors' backs. He's not worried about, Kanye and Usher the same way he's worried about pastors. Like, that's celebrity, but we're way more intricate, maybe even just in our community. We're more important to the local body of people to represent Jesus. So Satan's at us. And so, I'm not surprised that there's people falling. What we are surprised about is that there isn't an eagerness to push your pastors or push yourself as a pastor into prevention and therapy. And I still am reacting like I did when I was 20. I'm 45. I need to grow up, but they don't know why they can't stop the overreacting, the burning bridges. That it's because you probably have childhood wounds that you went to one therapy session one time, you said, well, that didn't really work. And you chalked it up to, I don't do therapy, or it's ineffective. Or you go to a marriage conference. We did that. We'd go to marriage weekends or marriage conferences and be like, well, cool, that should work. We didn't have a marriage problem. I had a Sonny problem. for my little traumas in my life, and he had a Shawn problem. And then we were really bad roommates. That's the reality.
Yeah. In any relationship, there's yours, mine, and ours.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to spend quite a bit of time trying to figure out, is this your side of the street or is this my side of the street? Mm-hmm. And really, you have to look at the marriage as this third relationship that both of you are taking care of. And that process for us was realizing, like, okay, this is not like I'm responding to something, and this is not about me. Most of the time, she was looking at me saying, "This is not my issue. This is your issue. Go figure it out, buddy." But that's interesting. So what are the things? Tell us a little bit about the house in Carolina and the retreat. What is needed? No doubt, we are talking to people right now in pastoral transitions that are going through a recovery process of some kind. They're needing redemption and restoration and all of the words. What is it that they come in needing, and what is it that they come through in that process, hopefully restoring them to what?
Yeah, I think that there's a two-phase thing that we are really called to. One, obviously, is restoration, finding men and women who are broken and just need to be loved and need to have a place where they can land. And so that was kind of the heart behind the reserve, is that it could be a safe place to land. Where do you go when you don't have a job anymore, when everything that you know, all of your income has been taken away? So, we also own businesses. And so part of the thought was that we would have a place where people could land. They could go through a trauma-based therapy program, get themselves restored emotionally and spiritually, and then give them avenues to where they can go and perhaps work in one of our businesses, or have us help them start something that they're passionate about. Because here's the thing, maybe you're in pastoral ministry, but I can tell you that there's been lots of times where I've looked at somebody else, like my landscaper, and thought, I don't know that would be half bad. That dude's out there listening to music, smoking a cigar, blowing leaves off my front lawn. Like, this dude is living right now. And I'm in here stressing about, what am I going to talk about out of Ephesians? This guy, he might be listening to a great podcast, or he may be listening to a great song, but he's passionate about what he's doing, right? So he's living his best life. And maybe there's a guy who's in ministry right now who the reason that he went into ministry is because everybody told him that he should go into ministry. He wasn't called by God. He was called by his youth pastor when he was 13. Because his youth pastor identified skills in him that he thought translated into ministry. But really, he should have been selling shoes at Nordstrom. He shouldn't have been leading a ministry. So that guy now, how do we identify what their gifts are and help them be released into that thing that maybe they should have been in from the beginning? But secondly, we would love to catch people as a preventative measure. Because part of the challenge is, who do you talk to? Let's say you're a youth pastor, a children's pastor, a worship pastor, whatever is your title at your church, and you feel like you've got some sort of an internal spiritual struggle, whether that's your morality or your doubts, whatever that may be, something that could be a fireable offense. Well, if you go to your senior pastor, you're fearful that you're going to lose your job. Then if you're a senior pastor, who do you go to when you have some sort of an issue? Do you go to your board? Do you go to your superintendent? Well, maybe you lose your job. So I wonder how many people don't feel like there's somebody that they can talk to who can almost broker a peace agreement. So if you were a senior pastor and you respected me and I came to you and I said, Matt, Marilee, you guys have somebody on your staff, they're going through something. We can help them. We can restore them. We've caught it before it was too late. Would you walk through that process with them and with us? Well, suddenly it opens up an opportunity for somebody to be vulnerable, somebody to be honest, without fear of the fact that how am I going to pay next month's orthodontist bill for my 13-year-old? So life gets in the way of vulnerability. So we're trying to create a space where we can help ward that off and then help repair that once it's been damaged. So what we need to do practically is Sonny and I need to start more businesses. We need to create more employment opportunities so that we can take people and we can help them go through. And if they want to start something on their own, we have the ability to teach them how to do that on a practical sort of level, and maybe fund them. We've had people that have left our staff, not over a moral issue, because they woke up one day and they were like, I don't really want to do ministry anymore. And we were like, well, let us invest in what it is that you want to do. Oh, you want to start a sound company? Let us invest in that. Let us be part of
your first contract,
your principal people. Yeah. So anyway.
Yeah, and I think the retreat center in North Carolina, it's 20 acres. It's like a luxury boutique hotel. It's not like your cabin lodge feel. It's very high end, so that you feel like you're at the Marriott, but you're not paying those prices. We've had people that have sent other people to us. We've scholarshiped people. I think the dynamic is that we have a few people who are trained and experts on the trauma-informed therapy, but they bridge scripture. The Holy Spirit's involved in the healing. So it's not just clinical, or it's not just pray about it. It's both. And then Shawn and I, from our perspective of being in charge or owning the property through the nonprofit, is that we come in and we try to inspire, because we are entrepreneurs, we are business owners, but we're also pastors, and we do love the local church. We've gone through seasons where we wanted to throw it out. Now we don't want to throw it out. But we kind of come in and alongside the people to get their mind out of that trauma-fueled shutdown mode and into, there is life after this. There is life after ministry. There is a future. And that doesn't mean that now you don't do ministry. We're as passionate about our coffee house and eatery, where we don't have things on the wall like Jehovah Jireh and, all the Christians. We don't have that there, but it feels different. Mm-hmm. And people ask questions like, who owns this? They're like, well, it's owned by these pastors in this church down the street. It's like, what? Nothing about this feels hokey, Christian-y. And so we find the most excitement over doing more of that to feed the local church in each community.
It's amazing. I love it.
I think the cool thing too is that for churches that are willing to send their people to you, are you seeing people that are not just coming out of ministry, like are you seeing people that are still connected and involved in their church? Like, are you getting people that are sort of pre-big crisis, big blow up that causes something where they have to step away from ministry? Or are you mostly seeing pastors who are coming out of ministry in a tough spot?
I think it's 50-50. We're seeing both. We would love to see more of those after crisis come to us, because there are more than are coming. And sometimes I don't even think it's financial. I think they just feel wrecked and they feel like they're not worthy. And on the flip side, some of them feel too prideful to get help. That's kind of why they got there. But we see 50-50. We're really excited when we get to have people come who there's been no moral failure, but they're pastoral couple, and they're like, oh my gosh, we had no idea how much we needed this. Like, we've taken vacation to Disney, we've gone to conferences, but like, we just needed to sit under that tree by the lake or go on that walk on the trail and like hear the Holy Spirit speak to us and not want to even be on our phone. We've had people that come and they'll sleep for 12 hours the first night and then take naps through. They're like, I don't know why I just keep sleeping. But they're they say you make the worst decisions when you're fatigued. And so we're having people come and literally they're just catching up on rest and refreshing.
It just occurs to me like what a beautiful message the churches that are sending people to you, like what a beautiful message that's communicating also to their body of it's okay to be broken, it's okay to take rest, and instilling a culture where it's okay to be vulnerable. Like we all have yucky stuff inside of us, and instead of creating an environment where everyone has to hide that and just pretend like everything's okay, well, while internally, you're falling apart, like what a message that sends to the actual people in the church of like it provides an opportunity for true transformation, true healing, and not this facade that I think we see so often that especially pastors feel and pastoral families feel they have to maintain,
Yeah.
I would want to add this. We're big on culture at our church and our businesses. We had 5 culture words, but it's just cool you said that, because it clicked with me. Maybe that's why we added a 6th culture word, and it was in the timing of us buying and renovating the retreat center, and we added the word vulnerable. And it is a powerful word that we're trying to walk out. And there is a difference between transparency and vulnerability. Transparency is the pastor that stands up there and goes, yeah, I drink and smoke a little, and, like, I cuss from the pulpit. I mean, this is happening out there, right? Mm-hmm. Like, this is who I am. And what that tells people is just keep being who you are. If you're a drinker, like, God loves you. And just like this is who I am, and this is who I'm staying. Or I have an anger problem, and so I'm just going to stay angry. That's transparency. Vulnerability is, here's some stuff about me, and it's not what God would want. It's not what I will want. And so I'm teachable to let God fix that. And so I think the walking out vulnerability from the pulpit helps our people.
Yes.
And it gets vulnerability.
Yes, 100%. And I think so much of it too is actually it's learning intimacy and connection with Jesus himself. I mean, we have to learn vulnerability with him first, right? That I can actually say, and I mean, he already knows it all, but for us to be able to say, "Ugh, look at this, look at this thing in my life that I know is gross. Like, let's talk about it," and that's transformation at such a deep level too. And if you can't do that with Jesus, or maybe we need people to help to be a vulnerable person to help us even get to that place with the Lord,
Yeah, well, you guys have teenagers, and you've seen it when you've got a teenager that's carrying something, and they're carrying it. And when they finally come and admit that thing to you, and you show them forgiveness, and you show them love and grace, and you do still discipline them. It's not like this is a get out of jail free card. There are consequences, but those consequences are covered in parental love and forgiveness. And that's this idea of vulnerability. Like, imagine if your kids, I mean, I would hate to have my kid, like, in one regard, I would hate for my kids to tell me everything that they're struggling with at all times. But at the same time, I want to be able to carry some of that load with them. Yeah. So it starts, you're right. It does. It starts in our homes. It starts in our spiritual lives. So that's a good word.
And, one of the things I heard in seminary when my prophecy said the task of Christian parenting is to help our kids come out of hiding. But there's the quote that says something like, religion is I messed up. I can't let my dad know. And the gospel is I messed up. So where's my dad? Right. Right. So there's just this and so if we could actually, even in a pastoral sense, look at our people that we shepherd and say, that is a whole group of people that we get to love. And how do we actually help create this environment of vulnerability to be able to say, you messed up, let's talk, right? I don't have to go into hiding with all of my stuff. If we can actually, there's liberation, there's freedom on the other side of confession and getting your stuff out there. And if we can actually prevent you from making those mistakes so you don't hurt yourself in the process, then that's even better.
I think to the market that you've been talking to, guys or gals who have left ministry and are trying to figure out what to do on the other side. I was full blown in ministry, preaching all over the world in sold out arenas. I had a moral failure. I gave that away. I lost that. It was my own fault. And so then I went through a season of finding myself and finding Jesus. And when I came back and submitted myself to whatever it was that he wanted from me, I do still preach. I do still carry a pastoral title and mantle, but it isn't my favorite thing. I love marketplace ministry. And honestly, if I could full blown leave ministry and just do marketplace ministry, I would do that. God hasn't allowed me to do that. But I wouldn't view it like it was a demotion if he did. I would view it almost in my life, with my personality, like it was a promotion. I love when people come into our coffee house and I clear their table and they look at me like I'm like, oh no, that's somebody's dad and he's working at a coffee shop when he's 50. I love it. And I just think, you know what? That dude's going to come in tomorrow. He's going to come in the next day because we have a great product. And over time, he's going to realize that I own the place and I am sold out for Jesus. And so it's going to open up conversations. That guy would never come to my church. And so I just want to talk to the guy or the girl who feel like leaving ministry is a demotion. God has something else for you to do. God doesn't demote us. He promotes us. He moves us on to the next best thing. And so I'm in this season at 50 where I'm blessed that I get to be a chaplain. I get to be around NFL players every day. And I love that. And if God asked me to do that only, I would do that only. But I also love washing dishes at a coffee house next to a 16-year-old kid who's trying to figure out how to overcome anxiety in his life. And I can share stories of how God helped me overcome anxiety in my life. So if we could just start looking at whatever ministry God has put us to, whether that's mopping floors, trimming hedges, and realize that that's the best thing that God has for us to do in that moment, then he will use the gifts that he's given us to absolutely transform the people around us.
I love it. And it makes me want to start a coffee house. So we're going to do that. Marilee, it's another business we're going to do.
Southern California.
We want to.
That's on the radar.
Oh, you are?
Hello, Kathy. Right. Not to steal your
Hello.
There are
I didn't know.
cities on our radar, so we could talk.
That's good. Well, hey, if folks want to get in touch with you and the enterprise that is Shawn and Sonny, what does that look like?
They can go to theexchangecollaborative.com. That's the website for our podcast, The Rise After the Fall. And to learn more about the Reserve from that website, theexchangecollaborative.com. We pastor Life Church Green Bay. So that's lifechurchgreenbay.com, or then Shawn Hennessy or sonnyhennessy.com, our personal website.
Good. And I'll put all of that in the show notes so you can click around and spend hours and hours. I got lost on all of the websites, so it's fantastic. Hey, we love you guys. Thank you for sharing your story on here, Life After Ministry. There is indeed life after ministry. There's ministry after ministry. Even if that looks like washing dishes next to a 16-year-old, it actually sounds very freeing. That or blowing leaves on the front yard sounds. I'm going to explore some things after we hang up here. But hey,
thank you guys.
See you later.
Thanks for sharing. Shawn and Sonny, thank you so much for sharing your story and words of wisdom with us. As you're listening, we start to think about, man, there are so many needs and so many things and places that you have to go, things you have to do if you are in a season of coming out of ministry, trying to figure out what is my next job going to be and how do I care for my heart and soul, and maybe even address some of those things in my childhood that were not ever really addressed. And now they're kind of bleeding out all over the place in these different areas. What I love about what we're doing with Pastoral Transitions is that we can't solve everybody's problem with absolutely everything, but thank goodness we have such a great network of partnerships. Shawn and Sonny and their ministry being one of those, as you've heard, and we have different partners who are coming online here, that we have so many places that we can send because every transition is so different and so unique. We initially will take somebody in and try to figure out what is it that you need and who are we connected to and what are the relationships and partnerships that we have that will serve in the best way. There's certainly things that we do as a ministry that we're firsthand and we're right there, but there's sometimes there are some of these places where we want to be able to get you connected to some of these places that are going to be able to hit you where your heart is at and where you have your greatest area of need. So we're so thankful for partners like Shawn and Sonny Hennessy and the work that you guys are doing. Thank you so much for sharing. If you know somebody who is going through the ringer, they are trying to figure out what is next now that I'm no longer in ministry, would you give us a call? Would you reach out? You can go to pastoraltransitions.com and you can reach out. You'll be talking to one of us, likely me, and we will begin the journey of trying to help. And for those who are trying to figure out how am I even going to be able to afford it, we do have a nonprofit arm of Pastoral Transitions. If you're in a place to be able to give to support someone who's coming out of ministry, then we welcome that because we get to take that and then leverage that and put that into the restoration and rebuilding of a life of somebody who's given their life in the area of ministry. So thank you for listening to the Life After Ministry podcast. Share, like, do all of the stuff to help us get the word out that there is a better way to do this. There is a better way, and there is life after ministry. Shalom.